What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and the F100 build. On this episode, we are going to be diving into the headers. Now, the Coyote 5.0 has been mounted in the chassis. We've also put the steering system in. The reason we've done that is I gotta have a like a view of where this linkage is gonna go. So I have an idea as where to run the primaries and everything like that. It's gonna be pretty interesting doing the headers on this setup because we have the cab front end of the truck off. So it's gonna be a lot easier to run all of our primaries, put our collector where we want it. This frame rail is gonna dictate exactly where those fender wells go. So we're gonna start mocking everything up, getting things tacked together, get the flanges on, and get the collectors positioned, and get some headers on this supercharged 5-liter Coyote. So I got this little 1/4-inch tubing that I use as like a locator for the collector, since there's nothing really to bolt it to. So my two collectors kind of floating in space. The exhaust will come down here, come over the transmission crossover, so everything's nice and tucked up in the frame rail. Your flange, your collector, now you just start connecting the dots. We're gonna start on this side first, I think, because the starter's a little bit of an issue. I want to be able to finagle in there. Passenger side header is just about there. The last primary here I'm gonna do on the bench. I just have it started, and a nice trick I've learned, guys, that you can do when you do headers, get the easy ones done first. Obviously these 3 primaries are gonna be the easiest. I kept them all nice and high so that I can leave this last one to just barely snake past that motor mount. So I tack welded a little scab, a little 45 here, got this started here. So now when I get it on the bench, I'll be able to connect the dots and be able to put everything together in a way that's gonna be a lot easier than if I did it on the car. Driver's side is pretty much where I want it. This last primary right here, I'm gonna do on the bench just like I did on the passenger side. But these bends, all I did was mimic the cuts. So when you're going ahead and laying out the headers, this guy on this side, I had to fold up. So as you can see, I folded it up instead of letting it go down because of the steering arm. You know, this guy goes right there. So I'm gonna pull the header off now, put it on the bench, and finish making these bends, and then I'm gonna put it back in to fit it for the final time and see how it fits. How do you connect this pipe to this pipe? How do you figure out this trajectory, whatever you want to call it, in order to get this in here? Well, take a full 90. And what I did was I got this joint to line up with this end. So now I have that straight. And all you're looking at is just these angles and then finding a bend in between them. Once I have this, I lay the pipe on top of this one. So I'm visualizing where this cut is going to be, and I mark it on this one first. So I'm gonna mark it on this one, I'm gonna cut it, I'm gonna make sure my cut is not cheated, meaning on the inside of this bend, it's not gonna be on like any sort of weird angle. Lay it back on there, transfer my mark to this guy, cut this one, and everything should jive. Fingers crossed. Oh, got this one cut, and this one cut. Let's see if it fits. It fits. Driver's side looks like it's gonna work. Got lucky on this primary. That knuckle just barely clears it, which is fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack all these joints together as much as I can while it's all bolted to the motor. And you can use the engine as kind of like a partial fixture. And then I'm gonna break it out, make a locating fixture on the bench, and start welding these primaries. that's all done, I couldn't obviously get to the bottom side of all the primaries. Like under here, all of these points are all like really loose. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna tack as much as I can, get this header as solid as possible without actually completely welding it. And then what I'm gonna build is an actual locating fixture. Now, all these primaries, you wanna be able to break them out, weld them all the way up, and then put it all back together. And for it to look like this, you can't just weld it completely on the bench. So what we're gonna do is make a locating fixture. I like to use I-beam. And what I'll do is I'll put my header flange bolted to an I-beam like this, and then I'll just locate back here if I get this to stay. I'll locate the collector, and I'll locate the header flange. Once I've located these 2 points, these primaries will actually slide back into the collector pretty effortlessly. And what I'll do is I'll kind of write a mark here with a timing mark, right? So now I know exactly where how far it has to slide back in and exactly where it has to go. So once these primaries are all broken out, you can kind of put this wherever you want in space. And it makes it really easy to like completely and totally make a different header from where you started. So locating fixture is done. This is the left side and right side all in one unit. This plate right here is what's going to keep everything fixed when I break these primaries down. Even when I break this down, I'm still going to probably put a couple more tacks, because when you go ahead and weld these primaries together, there's going to be a little bit of movement here and there. So you want as many tacks as you can, because the more these things move, the more you're going to have issues with clearance and with fitting. The collector's already tacked in on this side, so I'm going to start with the driver's side. This is the driver's side. I start welding this all up. I still have to add a piece in here. I'm going to cut this square, add a little straight to be able to go inside of the collector so it seals, and get this ready to get back together, all final welded up so we can put it back in the truck. Now that these are all tacked up, I'm going to use some blue Scotch tape and stick a purge line from here, this guy right here, right inside the pipe, fill it with argon gas. That way the inside of that weld doesn't get all sugary. It's going to add some strength, and it's also going to increase the flow so that the inside of the pipe is nice and smooth. The primaries are all welded up, as you can see. I got each and every one of these guys all welded. We started as before, the header's all tacked together. We made our locating fixture, so this will actually put the collector where it needs to be in space. So this hasn't moved. Our flange is fixed in place with these bolts. Now we get to put everything back together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from this 4th primary and work my way forward, just to make sure that this is 100%. So I'm going to start putting these in one at a time and just kind of tack them in place. And you see how I use my timing marks there? So I just line it back up, my timing mark. I'm going to put a tack where it originally was, put another tack on the flange, and then keep going forward until I get to this guy. Once I get to this guy, I'll scab my piece in there, get that tacked in place, then weld that completely, because I'm not going to be able to get behind it, obviously, because this is going to sit right on top of that pipe. Driver's side is finally on the engine. I just installed it just to double check everything, make sure the clearances are good. Everything jives with the way it was when it was all tacked together. And as you can see, it looks awesome. So the flange is still just tacked together and the collector is still tacked together. The reason for that is I didn't have material or the ability to make the headers while the engine bay was still in. I still have rough measurements and I understand like where I needed to be. But as far as my collector fitment and as far as this pitch goes, if I need to drop it down or do anything like that, I can do minor adjustments from the collector and from the flange. just by kind of moving the tacks together. The primaries are all welded up, so that's kind of the bulk of the work. I'm doing that right now on the bench for the passenger side. I'll get that header on, and then we'll be able to move forward with the plumbing and getting everything back together. All right, so the headers fit, everything's confirmed. We put them in like 3 times just to double check. I like to be, you know, safer than sorry at the end of it. So now we're gonna weld up the flanges. What you wanna do when you weld these guys is you're not gonna wanna weld every single inch of this flange to the primary right away. It's almost like tying shoelaces. So you're gonna go opposite, 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 and then flip it around. So you're getting the same pull left to right, and it'll actually center itself out. So if you welded all of this up on this side at once, it's gonna pull this whole thing this way. It's gonna mess up your whole fitment of the header in the car. So it's almost like torquing head bolts down on an engine. You wanna weld this in a way so that it stays centered and it just keeps pulling back and forth and just stays completely still. Your inside of your welds are actually where your strength comes from on this side of the motor. If you just left the inside of this completely open, you're relying completely on this outside weld, which isn't the greatest. So what I like to do is I'll take like a punch like this, and I'll fold these edges all nice and tight to the inside of these flanges before I weld. I also have a nice carbide burr. I get in there and just kind of ream everything out, make it nice and smooth. Like areas like this that are really hard to get to, you can make up the difference on the inside. All right guys, primaries are all set. I put the headers back on the engine. I wanted to put them back in just so we can get kind of an idea as to how the exhaust is gonna run. We're gonna start running right down the transmission, put the X pipe back about here, and then hang our Stainless Brothers mufflers about here, and then probably do like some turn downs. Next episode, we're gonna start laying the groundwork for the rest of the chassis to go back together. We're gonna put the front control arms out to powder coat right now. Gonna get the rear end back pretty soon, and then start laying out the fuel system. Hopefully the supercharger as well. We'll be back from paint, be able to put that bad boy on, and be able to get this thing looking more like a truck. See you guys later. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you next time.